Hello, can you hear me? How's the sound? Can you tell me if this sounds alright? Is it too loud? Too quiet? Maybe there's a delay. Okay, two people on. Hello? Hmm. Testing, testing, hello. Sup, Araf? Can you hear me, Araf? Let's see. How do I play something? Hello, testing, testing. Can you hear me now? Is this loud enough? If I turn it higher, you'll hear my PC fan. Hello? 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 Can you hear me, Araf? Can you hear me, Cade? Okay, Araf can hear me. Does it sound okay? Ah, okay. So how is it now? I turned my mic up a little bit. Better? Hmm. Let's see. Who's this? Jacob George. It was paused. Okay. Don't chat here. Chat in Discord. I won't be looking at this window. Yeah, please chat in Discord. Okay, I'm just gonna send a message to Chris really quick. Lucas won't be joining us today. Okay. How about my sound? Is it loud enough? I'm right up next to the microphone now. I hate that there's a delay in this live stream. I think there's about a 10 to 20 second delay. Quiet. Okay. What can I do about quiet? Okay, I'll try to stay really close to the mic. How about this? I'm right next to the mic. Is this better? I'm eating the mic. I don't want to talk too loud because my kids are asleep. Alright, okay. Yeah, so these guys say it's perfect. Yeah, it's 9:19 p.m. here in California. Eat it harder. Okay. I can't eat it harder. Yeah, it's 9:20 now. We just put the kids to bed, and I've got this. So I'm trying not to talk too loud, and my wife's here with me also. Okay, we're gonna get started. Lucas wanted to show up, but he's having issues tonight, so he's not gonna join us. And I think Chris is spending some personal time with someone. It's 12:19, says Cade in New Hampshire, and Araf is joining us from Bangladesh. What time is it in Bangladesh? Sometime in the afternoon, right? It's 10. Oh, morning. 10:19 a.m. Okay. So today I'm gonna teach you how to make static web pages. It's gonna be web 1.0 stuff. You know how these days we have web 2.0 in 2018. So I'm gonna show you what it was like in the 90s when web pages didn't move and they were just static pages that look really bad. But I think okay, yeah. Because we gotta learn the foundations, the basics, before we get to the cool stuff. So you gotta bear with me for maybe a couple of days. I'm gonna show you the basics of how the web works and everything that the web is built on before they added all the fancy stuff on top of it. I feel like if you don't know all this basic stuff, you might get confused with the new stuff. But if you know the basic stuff, then you have a good foundation. You feel danger. Yeah, but it doesn't get any more basic than this. So once you know this, you'll get a good idea for how the fancy stuff works also. Okay, so to start, make sure you have a text editor. I'm gonna use VI here in my terminal, but you guys can use Notepad++ or Notepad even. What editor do you use, Araf? So I'm gonna start by opening a file. I'll call it hello.html. So make a new file in your text editor. If you're using Windows, just right click somewhere, make a new file. Visual Studio Code, nice. It's gonna be an empty file to begin with. And in it, just say hello. So what we're gonna do now is, now that you have your file, make a new tab in your browser, open it. So I save my file as hello.html. Whatever you called your file, just open it from your browser. For me, it was a Control-O to open the file. I think you should also have a menu up here where you could... Where's my menu? Okay, I don't have a menu, but usually browsers have menus. If you don't have a menu, just press Control O. I think that usually brings up the file browser. Then double click your file. And it should say exactly what you typed in it. If you typed hello in it, it should say hello, and if you say maybe, if you change it and go back to your file and refresh it, you'll see your changes. Everybody got that so far? This is the easiest way to test your web page. Just make a local file, load it up in your browser, and hit refresh. What's up with yours? Nope, okay. Can you find your file? If you press Control O, can you find your file? You should see your file in there. Or maybe if you're in the desktop, you gotta browse to where your file is. But then once you open it, you should see exactly what your file has. What I wanted to try to do with you guys today is show you HTML and CSS. HTML stands for Hypertext Markup Language. Oh, there it is. So the reason they call it a markup language is that when you type stuff in the text in your file, it shows up as it's text. But to tell your browser what to do with the text, you gotta mark it up with some commands. Like if you said B, this is a markup. I'm sped. What's sped? So over here, these are tags that you can mark up your text in. And if you refresh this, you'll see that now your text is bold, because the B stands for the bold tag. And using tags like this is how you tell your browser to render your text in certain ways. And all these tags are part of HTML. HTML syntax looks like angle brackets like this. So you always have a starting tag and an ending tag. The ending tags end with a slash. They come in pairs, just like how you have HTML and slash HTML and B and slash B. You alright there, Kate? So I'm gonna keep filling up this web page with the usual elements you have in a typical HTML page. You have the body, you have a head. It's like a person. You're building up a person here. Okay, we'll try to figure it out with you. What do you see now? Do you see anything in your browser? Okay, hold on. You can't find the file. Okay. Let's go here. Web apps. Try to put it somewhere really obvious, like your desktop or something. Nice. Okay. What do you have in your file so far? So now that you have your file, this is what I have in mind so far. Try to see if you can fill it up with the same stuff. I have HTML, start tag, end tag. I have a head section, start tag, end tag. And I have a body section, start tag, end tag. The reason we have the heads and bodies is because some special commands go in the head and some special commands go in the body. And usually all your content should go in the body. Alright, take care, Araf. Right now what I have in my body is the text, hello everybody, and I've wrapped it in bold tags, a start B and a slash B, an open B and a slash B. And if you have done that, then we have covered the first part and the second part. We have made a local file and we've opened it in a browser, and we've also looked at HTML syntax. And all HTML syntax is these angle brackets, the words in the angle brackets here that represent a start tag and an end tag. There are all kinds of tags that do different things, and we'll go over them little by little, but so far this is about all you need to get going. Oops. Okay. So now what we're gonna do is make a new page, because in a website there are many pages, and we're gonna see how to link the page that we have to another page. So to do that, let's make a new file, call it page2.html. So I've made a new file called page2, and I'm going to say I am page2. Then I'm going to go back to my first file, hello.html, and make a link to page2. To make a link, you use an A tag, or what they used to call anchors. So I'll say A, and this is the syntax, page2.html. So now that I have an open tag, I need a close tag. And I'll say click this to go to page 2. Now let's refresh this. I'm going back to the browser. I hit refresh, and you'll see this link pop up now. Click this to go to page 2. And if I click on it, it takes me to page 2 where it says I am page 2. So that's what we wrote here. We had one file called hello.html, another file called page2.html, and we linked the first page, hello.html, to page2.html. Okay. Let's debug now. What went wrong? All the code went with it. What does that mean? Okay, let's see. This looks good. Can you make a new file now? What I have now are two pages. One page called hello.html and another page called page2.html. My hello.html is on the left and my page2.html is on the right. Not correctly, but yes. Okay, I'm gonna go over what we just did. We added a new element to your page, to the body of your page, and it is this A tag. So everything that has these angle brackets, they're special commands that we're giving your browser. They're called tags. And an A tag is bananas. Nice. Okay, welcome Chris. This is our stream. Glad you could join us. So far, you haven't missed much. We've just made 2 pages. We have a 2-page website. Hey, what's this? Voice channel. Nice. Yeah, so far we have 2 pages. We've made 1 page called hello.html and another page called page2.html. And in our first page, we've got some HTML tags here. Start HTML, end HTML. Start head, end head, start body, end body. It's kind of like a person. You got a head and a body. And we're wrapping, the way HTML tags work is you have to wrap whatever it is you want the effect to be applied to with a pair of HTML tags. You always have a start tag and an end tag. So in this case, this B tag is a start bold tag, and this /B tag is an end bold tag. And the most recent thing we added was this link tag. It's an A tag, where you tell it where you want the link to send the viewer to, the text that you want the viewer to see for that link, and a close tag. Yeah, we're gonna cover CSS in a little bit. We're just gonna do like a crash course on HTML. Once we get this going, we're gonna jump straight into CSS. Just trying to get Kate up to speed. Oops. Yeah, so what you should have right now is a page, the first page that we have, hello.html, with the stuff that we typed in it, and a link that says click this to go to page 2. And when you click on it, it takes you to page 2 where it says I am page 2. Now if you look, if you notice, even though we had stuff in 2 lines, in separate lines, they all ended up getting squished into the same line in HTML or on the web page. And that's because there is a special command to put things in different lines. For example, you could say BR, and that's line break. So if you do a BR like this and you refresh, you will see that now it's in 2 separate lines. You could also use divs. Divs are like blocks or containers that say this chunk of stuff is a separate chunk of stuff, and this chunk of stuff is a different chunk of stuff. So when you refresh it, it will also be in separate lines. So that's just 2 ways to put things into different lines. We're gonna stick with divs because when we start using CSS. Thanks, Lucas. Nice of you to join us. So I'm gonna stick with divs. So divs are just like general purpose containers that you can use to separate stuff. Like I'm gonna use this div here to say I've got a chunk of stuff up there and a chunk of stuff below here. And this is gonna be useful when we get into CSS later. So by the way, Lucas, you haven't missed much yet. We just made 2 files so far, hello.html and page2.html. And what I was explaining to Kate in the beginning is that we're gonna go really quickly over the Web 1.0 stuff first, so you get to see what the internet looked like in the 90s. And over the next few days, I'm gonna show you how it progressed from where it was in the 90s to the modern stuff that we use today. Yeah, but I think these basics are really important because when you start using the modern stuff, it's really easy to get confused if you don't have these basics down. So we're just gonna spend a little bit of time to cover the basics, and then we're gonna go really quick to CSS, and JavaScript. I hope to get into CSS today. I think we can do it. Yeah, so it's kind of like a history lesson too. You got a text editor, Lucas? We're at 2 files right now. First file is hello.html and second file is page2.html. Actually, it might be easier if I okay. Yeah, so in the first file, I'm just going to delete stuff you don't need right now. There's the head, which we haven't filled out yet, and then there's a body. And we have an open HTML tag and a closed HTML tag. And like I was explaining to Kate, all the tags come in pairs. You always have an open tag and a closed tag. The open tags are just a regular word with these angled brackets, and the other part of the pair is the closed tag with this slash. So if you notice, they always come in pairs. There's a body, an open tag, and a close tag with a slash. So anyway, this is the quickest way for you to test web pages. Just make a local file, make a file on your hard drive, put it on your desktop or something, and then open it in your browser. Like here right now, I've got 2 pages, hello.html and page2.html, and I'm opening hello.html. Oh crap. Okay, open it in the wrong page. Yeah, and this is what you should see so far. You got a page with stuff, and when you click on this link, it takes you to another page. And this was more or less what the whole internet was made of back in the day. People would just chain many pages of this. Like if you had another page in your website, you just make another page and then add links, add another link to it. I'm going to say page3.html. And just click refresh. And it was terrible. You just have these plain text pages with links like this. And they all look like this too. Times New Roman font with ugly blue links that turn purple after you click them. That's what the whole internet looked like. Okay. So we have done this and this. We have also made a new page and we have linked to that page. Yeah, the Craigslist homepage still looks like that. Let's see what it looks like. Yep, this hasn't changed much. Okay. Let's go back to our plan for today. Okay, now here's an important concept that we've got to cover before we get into CSS. We're gonna get into CSS right after this, but before we do, we gotta learn this important thing. Otherwise, you're gonna get tripped up. The most important thing that you have to remember when you're using styles and CSS is that you gotta separate your content and your style. And what I mean by that is your content is whatever it is you have on your page. Like if you have stuff and more stuff, this is all your content. I'm gonna make a div for this stuff. I'm gonna make another div for this content over here, more content. And now when I refresh my page, I see stuff on the page. But now you might want to think that, okay, this looks terrible and I want to style this. I might want to change the colors or the font, or move this from the left over here to the middle over here, or make it look pretty. But you should use CSS in a separate section to make it to give it style, instead of putting commands in here to give it style. So whatever you put inside the body, it should just be raw content, like just raw stuff, no style. And all your styles should be expressed using CSS. So that way, if you have to change anything, you can always just change the content here and not have to worry about changing the style also. And then when you change the styles using CSS, they apply to all your content without having you to change the content. Because if you keep them mingled together, they can get really confusing. Like you could start adding a lot of tags here, like font and color or stuff like that. And then every time you want to make a change, you got to change your font here, you got to change your color here. It's better to keep it separate. So just keep raw content in your body and apply styles in using CSS. So one of the simplest ways to apply CSS is by, I think, adding a style section here. I'm not really sure about this. I'm going to try it and see if it works. So I have a head section, open head tag, close head tag, and I've added now a style section. So in that style, I'm going to say that all divs should be red, color red. Let's see if that works. Oh, cool, it works. So let me explain what I did. I'm going to close the other two pages. Everything in this style, within this style tags, you see this open style and this close style tag. Everything within these style tags is CSS, and you probably noticed this because the syntax is a little different. It has curly braces, there are semicolons. So what we've done is we're embedding CSS, which is cascading style sheets. It's another language. So HTML is the language that the page is made of, but inside the HTML page we're embedding some CSS code. So it's like some code inside some code. We're embedding CSS code inside HTML code. And this is the style of CSS code. It has some command or some selector. In this case we're selecting divs and curly braces. So we're saying divs, for all the divs you have in your page, I'm going to apply something to them. And what you apply to them is within these curly braces. The simple example I have here is I'm just changing the color of all the divs. I've changed it to blue. You can change it to green. And in the same way, you can also change everything on the page by modifying the body tag. So whenever you type something without anything else, like without any just like body, for example, if you just type body, that is a selector to select tags. So if you notice, when I type div, that selected everything with the div tag, and that made everything green. Here, it made everything green. And now if I say body, what that's going to do is select everything with the body tag. In this case we only have one body, so it's going to it's gonna affect everything inside this body tag. So for example, what we might want to do is change the font of your whole document. So I'll say font family sans serif. By default, it's a serif font. Serif are all those fonts with the squiggly tails at the end of the letters, and sans serif are all the fonts without the tails at the end of the letters. So usually for modern web pages, people have preferred sans serif fonts. Now when I refresh it, I have a sans serif font, and I think by default it's Arial. You can also start doing stuff like add padding. So padding is another CSS command where you add some white space around your content. I'm going to reload this, and you see I've added a 20 pixel white space padding all around the body. From the left to the right here, there's 20 pixels, and from the top to the top to the hello here, there's 20 pixels. And if you're using Chrome, a really handy thing to do is just right click and click inspect. And what you'll see is it shows you the elements of your page, as well as what styles are applied on them. Let me just, so see, let me get to the top of this page. Like if I hover over a head, nothing is selected because I don't have a head right now. But if I hover over a body, you see that the whole screen gets highlighted. And if I hover over this div, you'll see that the div gets highlighted. So you can kind of get a feeling of where everything is by right-clicking, selecting inspect, and then just hovering your mouse over different things. So like now if I click body, you can kind of see that there is a green rectangle surrounding my blue content. And that's because I added the padding. Hey, welcome back, Araf. You guys feeling okay with the CSS stuff so far? Are we styling? And you don't really have to remember all these commands too, like font family, padding. I forget all the time. I'm always looking stuff up, and the way you look stuff up is like this. I'm going to show you, for example, like give me an example of something you want to do on your web page, some style you want to add to your web page, and I'll show you how to look it up. Just have to try a different program because I'm getting triggered. Okay. Yeah, just use pen and paper. That's how we do it. How we did it in the old days. Back in my day, we only had pencils and punch cards. No, just kidding. Yeah, so I'm forgetting all this CSS stuff all the time. And the way I look it up is you just search for what you want to do and type in CSS. So like for example, how to make text bigger CSS. See? First hit on Google. And what I typed was how to make text bigger. So all you have to do is copy and paste. Let's go back to our CSS. We're going to make our font bigger. Let's make it huge. 20 25 pixels. Go back to my page, reload it. Look at that. Magic. Yeah. Or if you want to know what fonts you can use, you can say how to change font CSS. CSS fonts. There we go. Yeah, so that was the difference I was telling you about. Sans serif are just simple fonts with no tails or those little curly things at the end of the lines. And serif is when you have these decorative edges. Yeah, so the font family of text is set with the font family property. And if you want to change it, you can see some options up here. Times New Roman, Georgia, Arial, Verdana. Let's try Courier. Oh, monospace. Let's try monospace. I think someone like Chris might like monospace. It's got the typewriter console feel. So what you'll do is you'll change sans serif to monospace. And now it's retro. Or let's try this. Lucida console. I think if your fonts have a space in them, you've got to put them in quotes. No, that didn't work. That did not work. I think that might not have worked because my machine doesn't have this font installed on it, because I'm using Linux. So I'm just gonna go back to Arial, or let's say sans serif, and hit refresh. Or if you want a really hipster font, all the hipsters like Helvetica, CSS, yeah, Helvetica. That looks the same as Arial. Okay, whatever. We're done with fonts now. Separating content and style. CSS in head. Changing body font. We have done that. And now we're going to take a look at headers. H1, H2, H3. So remember how we wanted to keep things separate? Like we've got the content here, and we've got the styles at the top, so that you can mess around with how your page looks by just modifying the CSS up here and not having to mess around with the HTML down here. Back in the early days of the internet, you actually had no CSS. Like this, you didn't have all these powerful commands up here. You'd have to do every style on every tag here. Like if you wanted this section to look a certain way, you had to add some kind of style here. And then if you wanted to change the style of this section, you'd have to add a different set of style instructions here. So it was really messy. And that's when CSS came around, and that really simplified everything. So you could just set your content down here and just change the styles of all the stuff in one go up here. Like you could just in one shot say div, apply all this stuff to div, and that'll affect everything. Okay, see you later, Lucas. So I'm going to show you a new tag. It's called the header tags. Okay, it's not good to type in all caps all the time. and in this case I added an h1 tag. You can also try adding an h2 tag or an h3 tag to see what it looks like. And that's really the idea of messing around with these web pages. Since you can just edit these pages and reload in your browser, you could just make as many changes as you want and not really worry about breaking anything. Like this is pretty much what you'll be doing. You just edit some text file, Alt Tab to your browser, and hit refresh. And just keep playing with it until you see something that you like. What you see here right now is the result of the header tags I added. You see these h1, h2, h3. So that's a quick way to give your page a header. And if you notice, the size changes when you change the number next to the h. It's the biggest header is 1, and they shrink as you increase the numbers. I'm just gonna keep header 1. Okay. Done. And we've talked about divs already, but I'm just gonna go over them really quickly just to refresh. Divs are just generic containers. Just think of them like buckets. If you want to separate your content into buckets, you put them into divs. And this is a way to be able to style them differently. Like right now, I have everything in divs, but I'm not differentiating any of the divs. They're all just generic divs. Like this stuff is in one bucket, this content is in a bucket, and this other content is in another bucket. But now, suppose that I wanted to apply a different style to different divs. What's a buffer? What's that? Bucket. I said bucket, but you can call it buffer too, or containers, or boxes, or blocks. Some people call it blocks too. Like I have a stuff is in one block, content 1 is another block, div is another block. So now suppose that you want to style these divs differently, or if you want to do something different to different divs, how would you do it? Because right now we can apply something to all the divs, but this doesn't give us any control to apply it to different divs or to do different things to different divs. So the way you do that is by using a special attribute of a div called ID. There are actually two ways to distinguish divs. One of them is using ID, and another one is using class. So I'm going to show you how these two ways are different. To use the ID attribute, you just say ID inside the div here, and you give your ID a name. You give it an ID. You give your div an ID. This is just a regular string, the bunch of text here. You could have called. You can call this anything. You call it stuff. You can call it my stuff. You can call it I don't know, my stuff. But the thing about the ID is you're only supposed to have one thing that has this ID on the page. What froze for you? Did the stream freeze? No, the stream is still going. Yeah. Is it frozen for anybody else? Okay, maybe try refreshing it. We're just gonna keep going and try to catch up. Yeah, restart your computer too. Kill the power. Restart your computer. Reformat. Are you back, Kate? Okay. Yeah, great. So back to divs. We were just talking about what's the difference between IDs and class. IDs are unique. On every page, you should only have one thing with one ID. So like this is okay. I have this div with ID my stuff. But what would not be okay is if I had another ID, another div with the same ID. Because then the browser will just get confused. Because IDs are supposed to be unique. But for classes, classes are used when you want many things to be in the same class or the same group. You can think of classes like groups or friends or buddies or whatever. So for class you could say this is a class called content. So whenever I want to apply a style to the content class, then everybody with the class name content is going to get affected. But for ID, this is how you control unique divs. So now what I'm going to say up here is I'm going to make all the divs green, but for special divs, let's say a div called my stuff, and this is how you tell it to select the IDs with the pound or the hash symbol. If you put a hash symbol in front of this text here, you're saying that you're applying whatever stuff's within these curly braces to ID my stuff. So for example, for my stuff, I would want to make it font weight bold, font size small, color blue. So then refresh. Alt tab, come on. Yeah, so now since I only selected the div with this ID, the only thing affected by that code was stuff. It's blue, it's bold, and it's small. Now let's see what happens if I write some code to affect this content class. So just like how there's a special symbol to select IDs, the symbol to select classes is a dot. So you would say dot and content. And for content, what shall we do? Let's change the font family to monospace and font size, let's say huge, 30 pixels. And let's also change the color so we can be sure that we affected this class. Okay, Alt tab, refresh. Now you see both of these divs have the style applied to them. So by grouping them into the same class, when you specify this CSS code up here, they affect everything in that class. So this is a really quick way to control different elements in your page. Because how people used to do this before CSS was invented was they would just add some style here, and it'd say style, font, family, monospace. It was really painful. You'd have to do it here, and then you'd have to do it here too. Font, family, monospace, and it was terrible. And if you had a whole page of this, you had all this code all over the place. And then one day you might decide that, oh, I want to change things to blue. What do? Then you'd have to go through the whole page again and add some color here. Color blue. Yeah, it was terrible. So that's why CSS was invented, so that you could just put things in the same class and then just change one piece of code that affected the whole page. Dot content, put your code in here, and like magic, everything changes. We can also try changing these links here. Like if you notice, these links are purple and they're underlined. Even Craigslist doesn't look as bad as these classic links do with the underline. I think almost nobody has underlines on their links anymore. So to do that, we would change the style on all the A tags, because remember how when you just type a text here, it affects everything, every tag with that name. So we're going to change the A tags, and I think the command, I'm trying to remember. The command is text decoration none. I'm going to refresh this and see the underlines have disappeared. But sometimes you might still want to let users know that this is a link. So what some people might do is they say, when you hover over it, see, this is a special command here, :hover. So this is saying for all the A tags, I want this CSS to only come into play when the mouse hovers over it. You could say text decoration underline. So it starts by default with no underline, nothing, and if you hover your mouse over it, an underline shows up. I think this is how it works. I refreshed it, and now you see we're starting to get fancy with our Christmas theme page. Red, green, blue, and purple. Okay, I'm going to skip this. How do you... Yeah, let's skip this. You guys good so far? Is there anything you want to do that you want me to show you before I go into images and embedding YouTube videos? Yeah, okay. Now we can put memes on a web page. Yeah, but it's fun, right? I mean, this was, to me, this was really cool when I first learned this, because you could just put stuff, write stuff on in a file, and then it shows up in the browser. And the cool thing about something that shows up in the browser is now all you have to do is figure out how to put this online, because This file is on your computer right now, but if you can put this online, then anybody in the world could see it. And that was really exciting to me when I was first learning this as a teenager. I think pretty much around the same age as you guys are right now. But of course, the web was much simpler back then. So this was exactly what I learned when I was your age. And since then, the web has changed a lot. So don't worry, we're going to start with this. As we get more comfortable with all this stuff, I'll show you all the what all the cool stuff people are using these days. So what you might notice so far is the web page that we made is very static, and that's pretty much how Web 1.0 was. Everything was static. There were just links, and the most media that you'd have is an image, because internet was really slow back then. YouTube wasn't invented yet, so it was just images and text. And then after a while, YouTube became popular, and you could start embedding YouTube videos. And then with the whole Web 2.0 thing, what was different was that it now looks like Discord. Like in Discord, this is a web page. So by the end of this whole thing, we're going to learn how to make something like Discord. But the only difference between a Discord page on the right and this page that we made on the left is there's a whole lot more interactive stuff. Like here, if you click this bar or that arrow, that down arrow here, this window pops up, and then if you hover over it, things change, and if you click on it, it takes you to a different page, and if you click escape, there's a lot more interactivity here. And then not only that, this is not just an interactive web page, it's also connected to some kind of web app in the back, some kind of database, because all these messages, you're typing them on your screen, but they get sent to some server somewhere, and everybody who's on this web page gets that message broadcasted to them real time. So there's a lot of stuff happening in the back end that we're going to look at too later, but first we got to learn the basics first, and that's how to make a static web page. So I think what I have planned for you guys is we're going to start with this static web page, and then we're going to learn a dynamic web page, and then we're going to learn the back end stuff to move data around. Okay, where was I? I had something I wanted to do with you guys. Oh yeah, images. Okay, so let's say you're getting fancy now. It's now the late 1990s, and internet is fast enough to put images on your website. So let's look for what shall we look for? One of the classic memes. Okay, I'm gonna grab a picture from the internet. Copy image address. You want the address of the image. Now I'm going back to my terminal to add some code. So for embedding images, well, you got a better one? Okay. Okay, well, I'm gonna do this to my web page, and you guys can put whatever you want on your web page. So anyway, what you gotta do is copy the address of the image, and then to put images in your web page, you need this tag image, img, and you say source, image source, and close tag. Alt tab, refresh. So this is common. Let me close this. This is very common when you just drop an image in there. Most of the time it doesn't fit where you would like it to fit. Right now it's way too big. Yeah. So how do we fix this? The same way we've been fixing all the other styles. So image width, image height, anything to do with reshaping the image is also a style. So the way we modify the styles is by going to CSS. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to say all my images, let's make the max width 400 pixels. And let's refresh now. Nice. Nice. Yep, so we've got an image that fits within your style now. You could also do things like, let's say border, if you like borders. A 1 pixel border, solid black. Refresh, and now there's a black border around it. Maybe you want a thicker border, 5 pixels, solid black. Now I've got a really thick black border, starting to look like a comic. So this is what I have in my code. Let's get another image. I'm gonna try to get another image. Okay, let's use Cade's image. Copy image address. Image source equals to. I hope this works. Okay, so if you notice, both images now have the same style. And that's because we told the browser to apply the same style to both images. Actually, to all images on this web page. We're saying IMG, and every image on this web page is going to get this style. But if for some reason you want to differentiate them, then you could give them IDs. You could say top image and bottom image. So then you could say all images have this style, but if you're the bottom image, I want your borders to be blue. Refresh. Yeah, so you see what happened was when you give this max width command, that affected all the images. So every image on this page is going to have this max width 400 pixels and a border of 5 pixels solid black. But then you added a new command, or we added a new command here that says on top of that, on top of what we told you to do earlier, we're going to give you a new command. If you're the bottom image, if you're an element on this page with the ID, because pound selects the ID, with the ID bottom image, I want you to replace your border with 5 pixels solid blue. And that's what happened to the second image. Okay. So now let's say that you're making a game. Excuse me. And you want to embed the trailer of your game onto your page. How would you do that? Close. The first thing you would do is put your trailer on YouTube, and let's say your game is called Destiny 2. So what you'll do is right click. Okay, yeah, we'll wait for you. Yeah, so to pick up a video from YouTube to embed, what you'll do is you right click it. What I did was right click it. Oops. Right click, and this menu will show up. What you want is copy embed code. Click on that. Alt tab to back to your file. Now let's drop it in here somewhere. See what I pasted? This was what YouTube gave me. And if you look at it, you probably will be able to recognize what this does now, because you know HTML, and all HTMLs come in tags. What this is an iframe tag. You see there's a start tag, iframe, and an end tag /iframe. And inside the iframe, there's a whole bunch of other commands or attributes. It's telling the browser what the width is, what the height is. But the most important thing is this src, source tag, where it's saying, play this video from YouTube. I'm going to refresh this to see what it looks like. Uh-oh. Refresh. Hello? Close. Hello? Refresh. Huh. It did not work. Check out. Sometimes things don't work. I'm just typing some text to see if. Oh wait, okay, here it comes. I guess the browser didn't refresh. But yeah, so this is what happens when you embed the video. What I did was I right click the video, selected copy embed code, and just pasted whatever YouTube gave me. And this is what came out. So now your web page has video on it, pictures on it, and text on it. And let's say I wanted to do something like center everything. So I go to body, because body affects everything, and I would say text, align, center. Now refresh. Ta-da! So cool. Yeah, I'm just gonna leave my code up on the side here so you can see it. How do I? It's kind of overflowing now. My stuff. Let me just delete some stuff. Or make it smaller maybe. Okay. Everybody good so far? So now we've done images. We've done YouTube embeds. This I think we'll do another time. We kind of did center align. And this is our masterpiece that we've created so far, which right now at this moment is still offline because it's a local file. But now the only thing that you need to do is put this on a server somewhere and anyone in the world can see it. And that's our first web page. I'll just hang around for a little bit more in case you guys have any questions or if there's anything you want me to go deeper into. Yep, I can do that. Before we end, I just wanted to say a few things. The reason that I wanted to start these jam sessions was, first of all, I wanted these to be jam sessions because I was thinking of it like, getting together with your friends to jam in a band. And that way it's not just me talking to myself, but if you guys, it was really helpful that you could tell me to slow down or things that you're missing, or like making this code full screen. So I thought of calling a jam session so that we could all just hang out and write code together, because I think right now in the beginning it may be true that it's one way and I'm just telling you stuff, but in the future what I was hoping to do is that we could all code together and build something together. So I think maybe for the first few sessions we might still need to go over some basics, but once you guys get all the basics down, then we could really jam together and share our code, build a website together. And also I think what inspired me to do this is a few of you guys were mentioning that you're looking for a way to make money, to live independently, buy a computer, visit your girlfriend or whatever. So as far as I know, this is probably the easiest, most in-demand programming field you could get into. Like if you're starting from scratch, this would be something I recommend anybody. Just start by doing some web development, because as you can see, it's really easy to get started. And also, since everything is online right now, almost every business needs somebody to write code to do some web development. The stuff we're doing now is really basic, and even with this you could find a lot of gigs or some simple jobs. But as you get more advanced, then that opens up it opens up more doors to higher paying jobs. But it all starts with just something like this, just some text in a file and loading it in a browser. And now that you know this stuff, you pretty much know HTML and CSS, because whatever you don't know, all you have to do is open up Google and search for it. Like if you want to know how to do something with CSS, you just say how to blah CSS, or how to do whatever in HTML. Yeah, that's a good idea, Raf. I gotta figure out how to make a voice channel for jam sessions and how to mute Chris if I need to. Yeah, but seriously, thanks guys for joining me for this first jam session. I was expecting nobody to show up, but it was really nice that, Cade, you showed up on time, and Lucas, he tried to join even though he had something else going on, and Chris and Araf, really appreciate you guys. And if you guys are interested and you keep wanting me to do this, I'll just keep doing this as long as you guys keep showing up. Anyway, if there's nothing else you want me to go over today, I'm gonna sign off. Thanks a lot, everyone. Have a good night and have an amazing rest of the weekend. Good night, guys.